So I'm looking for the interpretation for forms of governance. I looked through the interpretations and they've not actually put anything for petitioning for different forms of governance, what that exactly does or doesn't mean. Everything is governed by something. Contracts govern things in the council. Greenbelt orders govern things. Forms of governance is the laws, the decisions. Everything that's decided or put into, everything that is made is to govern something, right? So when it's a decision over forms of governance, people govern things. You have people who govern things, but you also have laws and decisions that govern things. Under the 2011 Act, right, which is newer than the Act, which is quoted on the Vale of the White Horse website, it only quotes the 2000 Act, I think. When it says for petitions, there are no more changes to this. It says, right, petitions for a referendum. All it says is that, subject to Regulation 7, a local authority shall hold a referendum by virtue of this part, right? And that must be for normal petitions it's referring to, right? Where they receive a valid petition, right? It only has to be a valid petition to the council. Anyone can petition the council because they are doing. We know that people who work in a town, if you work in Uffington Centre, if you got a shop there are people in Uffington Centre who are petitioning the council. And there are people who sign it who don't live in Uffington, but drive into Uffington because they've got a business in Uffington, who sign petitions. They don't vote in elections there, but let's get this clear. Once you've triggered a referendum, there are rules for holding a referendum. Once right, we're going to have a referendum now. When you're having the referendum, pursuant of it, the pursuance of a referendum is only pursuant of one. It's not actually having it. To have it, you collect the votes of the people. But pursuant to it is it's in connection with it. It's in connection with a referendum, because you're in pursuit with it. It's in connection with seeking one to have, where it has its own procedures, but to get one, it only says it's by virtue of a valid petition. Now, a valid petition, what is a valid petition to the council? A valid petition to the council to ask for something, whether you're asking for a new school, whether you're asking for Greenbelt enlarged, whether you're asking for parking places removed or a street changing the other way to have a different road traffic regulation order on the street, as a form of governance, right? You are asking for something. You're not having a referendum at that stage. You have the right to petition the government to give or allow you something, the local government or central government, right? Once you've obtained it, right, then you go by which you have obtained by the procedures of that thing, which is the referendum procedures, right? It shall be obtained, and when they receive a valid petition, but shall not be required to hold such a referendum where they have received a petition which is not valid. Well, a valid petition is valid when it's valid, when it follows the requirements of submitting a petition and contains what it needs to contain, the information it needs to contain, and anyone in the UK can sign a petition to the British government. Every council is Her Majestys local government.gov. And under the rights, British citizens have the right to petition Her Majesty's government. And whenever you petition, anytime you write a complaint to the council, they pass it to who the department it involves. If it's local area that deal with matters, it gets passed to the local area. This is why many councillors are even running petitions on change.org, and people are signing them from all over England. People are signing them from all over the world now. So, and they're making decisions on it. They're actually having council meetings on petitions that have run on change.org, and all manner of people have signed them. even Canadian and Australian people, are part of the Commonwealth. And particularly with ancient sites, if a county has an ancient site, it is in the interest of those people for what happens to that site. And they can sign petitions that the council can make a decision on. But if you're asking for a referendum, is only a thing that you're asking for. The council could grant the thing that you're asking for, a decision that you're asking for, if they want. But a referendum is only an object you're asking for, which is you're asking for there to be a referendum of the local people who will vote in it. Now, it says to achieve that, you've got to match the numbers, which are the 5% of that figure. It doesn't actually say in that wording, in this act, who it has to be who signs the petition or not. This next section here, right? In relation to a petition received, right? In relation to a petition that has been received under the regulations and requirements of what that petition to the council has to include, the names and details, right? After, in relation to a petition that's been received, right? And after an authority has given notice of their intention to hold a referendum, because of a petition that they've received, obviously, that triggers one, surely, and the date on which the petition will be held, pursuant of this part, right, well here, right, in amalgamations of petitions, right, it says, if he or she is satisfied that the first petition received by the authority, in brackets, including the constituent petitions, right? Including constituents petitions, amalgamated in accordance with paragraph 1, right? But all petitions on the same subject can be considered, not only the constituent ones. Right, on this one here, right, contains a number. What is the number? The number is the number of which has to be matched. Contains a number of signatures, right, of local government electors. The number of signatures of local government electors, right, when you interpret that, right, contains a number, right, which means a figure of signatures of local government electors, right. The number of local government electors, right, the figure of local government electors interpreted, right. The local government electors, of which the constituency consists of, is the representation and size of the constituency, right? And the number of electors, the percentage of people, is a bulk figure, right? That is what we're referring to. Contains the number of signatures of the local government electors, right? The number of signatures that equals that, right? It does not say that they have to live in that constituency, the people who are signing it. It only says that it will contain a number of signatures the number of signatures that are the same as the local electors figure for the authority's area, contains a number of signatures of local government electors for the area that equals or exceeds the verification number and is in other respects a valid petition. Well, other respects, what other respects are there? In other respects to it being a valid petition, what other respects are there? Well, when you're petitioning Her Majesty's government, you've got the right to petition all of the government, the whole government, every department and every area. You've got the right to. You have the right to petition Her Majesty's government in the Bill of Rights. You have the right to petition Her Majesty's governments under the 16th Bill of Rights, any department, any division and any area to who it may concerns, because that's where the petition goes to who it concerns. Because you can petition any part of the government, any department or any area. You have the right to, right? It's a fundamental right. So if you've got a B&Q in Shrewsbury and you're wanting them to get the direction of the street changed because you've got a shop there, you've got the right to petition Her Majesty's government. You don't petition the Department of Transport if it's not on a trunk road, because they don't deal with it. If it's a normal road in the town, the relevant department is the local council authority, and you've got the right to petition to them. And that is a fundamental in a respect of what constitutes a valid petition. They can't omit and prevent you from doing that. Now, you've got the right to, in those respects, achieve the equal signatures of the local electorate, because it qualifies in those respects and under that law and rights as a valid petition, as long as it contains the correct information. And are in other respects valid petitions. They have to equal or exceed. I've set out the reasons why that is in my other video. Because you can petition any part of the government. It doesn't say on here that you cannot petition a local council if you don't live in the area, because you have got fundamental right to do that, right? In other respects, what constitutes a valid petition. It facilitates for that here by saying it and in what are in other respects valid petitions that do not propose the same constitutional change. Well, all petitions are asking for some sort of change or other. The petition that contains the greatest number of signatures shall be treated as the first to be received. Any other petition shall be treated in the following order. But they've still got to be combined together. You still can combine them after people have already submitted them, actually, in fact. Also, again, back to this petition for referendum, it says local authorities shall hold a petition by virtue of this part when they receive a valid petition. A valid petition, right? A valid petition to Her Majesty's government, right, is a valid petition when it contains all the correct information, right? And, in fact, there is no part of government, there is no area of government or department that you cannot petition, no matter who you are. It is Her Majesty's government. If it's not HM government, then you don't have a right to petition that government. You don't have a right to petition that government if it's not that government. Our government is Her Majesty's government, right? You can petition, you have the right to petition Her Majesty's government. And you cannot be discriminated against from whichever department you're petitioning. When you write to Parliament, right, if you write to number 10, they always pass correspondence to the department who it concerns. If it's about transport and you write to number 10, they say, well, we don't deal with this, we forward it to the Transport Office. And many times the government say, we're not going to deal with this, it's a matter for this council or that council, because that's why the council is there, to deal with local matters. Now, just because you live in another county does not omit you from having the right to petition that area of government to who deals with that matter. And that comes into play when people have got shops, when a whole town centre might be an entire town centre, right, could be people in there working all day who aren't living in that area. Every single shop in the town centre could be owned and run by someone from the next county, but they all live and work there all day. Now, to propose that they wouldn't be able to write a petition to the council when the council are going to change the roads direction or something which affects their shop and customers is ridiculous. You can do it. And you're petitioning .gov. You're petitioning whitevalecouncil.gov, the Department of Council, an area of that jurisdiction. Now, it's true that in a referendum, you don't elect if you live in the next constituency, you do elect the councillors for that constituency, and that constituency elect the councillors for their constituency, right? But a referendum that is held has those procedures. But to obtain that, you're only in pursuit of it. You're not actually holding the referendum, right? And it's true that there is a number and figure of electorate percentage that needs to be reached to trigger a referendum. And the local constituents count. The local signatures from the local constituents count towards that, and all other valid petitions, it says. And what makes a petition valid is if you are a British citizen and you have got your name on it and all the details are on there, whatever you're asking for, and all the people who sign it with the required details on there. It says, and all valid petitions. Now, this is written in a manner, I believe, so as to deter people and dumb down their understanding of the process. It clearly indicates that. And you can clearly have a referendum for Brexit, which is not, you're not electing ministers when you have a referendum for Brexit. It's a governance decision on how the country is going to be run. You can have decisions on how the country is going to be run, how the local area is going to be run. You can have a referendum for how local area is going to be run. You can have a petition for how the country is going to be run. And you can have local elections to elect councillors. And you can have national elections to elect ministers. It's the same for local and main government. People haven't been having local referendums for matters, mainly because they don't bother to get a large number of signatures. They only bother to pursue the number of signatures usually that's required for a full council, which is less than 5%. People don't bother getting a lot of signatures, and a lot of the time they don't ask for a referendum, and the local council usually won't want to give them one, because that means that the people will be making the decision, not the council. The people will be making the decision, not the council. So that's why they don't like to give them the decision. That's why they don't probably want to have referendums, and why the government likely doesn't want to try and have them. But it's a fundamental right. It's a fundamental right to access that process and procedure.